Marianne is actually, she was actually born in Zimbabwe. She spent her formative years there in what we call the bush, actually a farm where she developed the love of nature. And thanks to that, we have her here today. She worked as a freelance photographer and writer for Garden and Home magazine for over 30 years and authored a book called Gardening in South Africa, published by Struik Lifestyle in 2009. Marianne is an avid gardener. She has an extensive experience in both horticulture and indigenous flora. She is a keen hiker, a photographer. In fact, talking about a keen hiker, Marianne, I'm just thinking about the story you just shared with me. I think Marianne is that one that just pushes everybody to live their best, you know? She loves photography and loves traveling and particularly visiting unusual places. Marianne, what an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. I look forward to this talk, and I think it's going to be a true inspiration and also going to give us ideas of where to take a small short left so we can take our loved ones. So Marianne, without any waste of time, over to you. And to the rest of the team, please, if you have any questions for Marianne, please remember to leave a comment on the Q&A. And we will catch up with you guys on the other side of the call. Marianne, over to you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. After lockdown, I thought a trip around the world would be a wonderful way, a whirlwind trip, just to take you to see some of the gardens that I've seen on various trips. We're going to start in the Orkneys to the north of Scotland, where I actually went to visit or see where my ancestors had come from. And then we're going to work our way anti-clockwise around the world. Wherever I go, I'm on the lookout for special or unusual plants and gardens. Some fall in my lap, others are sought out and often include a special detour. But it's a reciprocal thing because my husband takes me to see some very interesting engineering feats. So it's a good partnership. Some of these gardens are inspirational, others I found fascinating, some are well known, some are private, and some are very different, even over the top. And these vary from enormous to incredibly tiny gardens. I hope I've chosen something for everybody. And please forgive me when I consult my crib notes. If I worry too much about somebody's name or something I forget, we get lost. So here we go. Oops, right. I'm trying to press two buttons at a time. I'm starting with the garden in the Orkneys. We were driving along and saw this little gate and said, wonder what that is. We reversed, parked, and went and found it was open to the public. It was a very small garden. But what impressed me most was the variety of plants. It's all charity done. A couple of people in the village look after it. And to see some of the familiar plants in the garden. South African Stylus, which is now Hesperanthus, and all along the roadsides too, masses of our local crocosmia. Of course, we don't go to see South African plants when we travel, but it's always interesting to see what people are growing in their gardens there. They also had the Japanese anemones, which will tell you that it was autumn when we were there. Of course, this area is quite warm. The Gulf Stream coming up from Mexico influences all the gardens, or the side, the west side of Scotland, so they can grow these sort of plants. They might have occasional light snow there, and it's very windy, but there's only about 10 degrees difference between the average summer and winter temperatures. So now we're going to fly from that little garden, fly across the Atlantic to Peru. You're probably wondering why on earth I put this picture in, where's the garden? Well, it's just to show you what the difference is between the mountainsides and the valleys, and how clever the Incas were in the way they terraced, where they had no land in the valleys, they would terrace the hillsides, and they would redirect streams to water these by flooding them. But the garden we're going to see in the village was just a sheer delight. We opened the gate and we couldn't believe it. And you'll see so many familiar plants here. The common old yellow daisy, our pelargoniums, And then the exotic things like the marmalade bush, the red-leafed irisine in the top right picture, with a canna in the background and a hibiscus, hollyhocks. And we don't grow the Chinese lanterns like they do, but they were magnificent. What was really, really interesting were the fuchsias. As we drove up into this area, into the mountains, we'd seen fuchsias growing along the side of the road. And at the bottom left, there's a picture of one of the fuchsias just growing wild. And doing a little investigation, I decided this must be corymbifolia. Fuchsia magellanica is, of course, found near the Magellan Straits in the south. And in the mountains here are two fuchsias, Matthewsii and denticulata from the Andes, and they're very rare plants. But you can see the plants here, that the fuchsias that were in this little garden, the tiny little miniature climbing one. So that was a delight, and just a place to relax and really feel at home. And even an arum lily I'm spotting now. There's so many plants in it. From there, we take a flight southwest across the Pacific to the North Island of New Zealand. Our hosts took us up to an island in the Bay of Auckland, and getting a ferry back, we got chatting to a lady who heard we were from South Africa. We enjoyed gardening. Oh, she said, you must come to see my garden. So we did a detour. She wasn't there. Nobody locks their gates. She said, please go in and make yourself at home. If you look at the top right picture, you'll see on the bottom left corner of it, if you look at the top left corner, you'll see the picture there, and on the bottom right corner, on the table is a square pot with a plant in it. And I'll tell you about that tomorrow. But other South African plants growing there were the agapanthus in that picture. And, believe it or not, nerines. Again, that tells you the time of year we were traveling there. I couldn't resist taking a picture of the magnolia, little gem, with back of its leaves, really, really that deep russet color. And she had freres. And it was just this juxtaposition of different plants that I found so amazing. This was another part of the garden. And in one shady area, she had the cold-loving maples with beautiful purple leaves, and ligularia. That's the picture in the bottom right. And I'm not sure what's growing in the water, but it could well be our waterblommetjies. Agave attenuata, which are with gazanias in front of them, and the yellow salvia, which was one I had never seen. But what really caught my eye was the plant in the pot on the table on the right. I couldn't believe it was home from home. There was the aloe Camara plicatilus, which grows above Tiavatas Kloof Dam. Growing in a pot there, and you wondered, it's so difficult to get here, you wondered where she actually had managed to find that. And another fascinating plant we came across in our travels through in New Zealand, and I kept looking at this and thinking, is it artificial? I felt one, it was hard, it was almost like bone. And I discovered that this is a lancewood or horuka, and it's a New Zealand plant, like the New Zealand phylexes and the phormiums, and it has a juvenile form, and it takes 16 years before it starts getting its adult leaves. And this is another form of it, and there are the funny little leaves, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger as the tree grows older. So it's always a learning experience when you go on these trips. And just it's interesting to see what plants we get from other countries. That's something that I've never seen anywhere else. And maybe it just won't grow anywhere else. That's also a possibility. In the blurb for the talk, we indicated that I would include an Australian garden. But one I really wanted to show would have taken too much time, and I didn't want to rush it. So instead, I've included this remarkable 65-hectare cool climate garden in the Downs of the Blue Mountains. We visited it about 10 years ago when it was fairly newly planted. A lot of the landscape, the hard landscaping had been done. And it's made up of two main gardens now, the Mayfield Garden and the Hawkins Private Family Garden. Now you might wonder, how can anybody afford to create a garden that size? Well, it's owned by Garrick Hawkins, an Australian business entrepreneur who made his fortune as a young man stockbroking, finance and investment banking. So if you're looking to make some money to do a nice garden, that's the field to go in, it looks like. It showcases gardens or copies of gardens or garden elements from through the ages, primarily from the UK and Europe, but also some Eastern gardens. You name it, they've got it. And everything is big. Work started in 1984 on the earthworks. I visited when it was 16 years old in 2012, but some of these are pictures taken later or taken off the internet so that you could see it. I must admit, looking at the recent photos of it on the internet, I found it interesting to see how the plantings have matured. It's wonderful to see trees now being established in that environment, such a big environment. But I still felt the garden was more of a showcase garden. The balance and proportion were out of kilter, and I was feeling very bad about thinking this. But I read a recent review on an Australian blog that I follow, and the lady there expressed a similar opinion. But all the same, if you are there, it's worth going to see. And there are lots of little tips you can get. I mean, this little topiary garden is quite stunning. And I loved the way they did the topiary of this plant. I could never been able to find, I think it was an apple of some sort, but they actually have bars sticking out from the wall so the tree isn't growing against the wall and it has space to breathe. And it's very, very neatly done. And also their vegetable fruit garden, which was extensive, was stunning. And the top photograph, you can see in the background the espaliered fruit trees, and those specifically situated there to catch the sun, and the warmth of the wall would carry the heat on and help them being able to flower and fruit for a longer period. An ideas one can get, the little arbor on the right hand side with it looks like grenadillas growing there, I think. And what a magnificent kale plant. I wish we could get those here, that color. Again, we found the Schizostylus there, growing inside a river. They've made waterfalls, they've made rivers, they've made streams. And brought in stone from all over the place. It's a phenomenal project to have done. And this is the little Eastern garden. It's a very poor picture, but the top right one, left one, but it does show you how the garden has matured from when the little pagoda picture was taken. They also have a stumpery, they have a nuttery with walnuts, hazelnuts, chestnuts. They have a garden for ericas. And one water garden covers 2.5 hectares. And they've also got a lake where you can go and row on a boat. And the final coup de grace, a very poor picture, I'm afraid, but it does give you an idea of the scale of their maze. I don't think I'd like to get lost in that. It would be a bit scary. We're now going to move further south, and in fact, across to further south, further north into Vietnam. We were on a tour here, and we took a cycle out of a town called Hanoi to visit this area. Normally, Vietnam is generally very, very green where we were. You've got the paddy fields, you've got the palm trees, you've got exotic-looking climbers and flowering trees, which are always in bloom and brilliantly coloured. But this is a place that I wanted to share with you where organically grown vegetables are grown by the local people. So we had a 3-kilometre ride north through from Hanoi to this village. And if one of those people looks a bit damp, don't worry, they'd propped their bike up on the side of a paddy field and were taking a picture, and the bike and them fell into the paddy field, which was a bit muddy. He managed to find somebody who had a hose available and they could wash the worst of it off. This is a village, Struik village, where the A in a bubble is in the picture. And if you look to the left, you'll see a funny shaped dark patch, and that is where Struik's, one could almost say, is gold comes from. Originally, it was a fishing village about 300 years ago, but when the people there discovered how rich the soil was, they started to grow vegetables. Now, about 200 families work here on 40 hectares and sell all their produce to the markets and hotels in Hanoi. And what they use as a fertilizer is the algae, which they collect from the lake and either use it fresh or they dry it out. They say it's a really clean product to use. There are no chemicals, no toxins, or even manure is used as fertilizer. Now and I just put the bottom picture in to show you how they use their local palm fronds as to provide shade. And I wonder if it might keep some of the birds out. I'm not sure. On the left-hand side, you can see the Peruvian Petunia grown with other plants. So they do grow some flowers as well. The other way that they make money is to invite tourists to come and see the village. So we paid to do this trip, we paid to do that. And you get dressed up. I give you your little outfit and a hat and what I call a bodzer, but I think they probably call a hoe. And first of all, we had to dig a trench, and then we lined it with the algae, chopped it up, and in the middle picture shows them raking the edge very neatly, and boy, did they watch you to see it was done correctly. And what I like here is actually the long handle. Although the Vietnamese are fairly short people, that long handle made it much easier to do this work. And then once you had made the bed you're going to plant, they'd tamp it down with a stick, with a plank at the bottom. Then we took it in turns to plant. Little seedlings were brought. We made holes with a finger, so it was that depth of hole, planted them in, and then watered them. This is one of our team doing the watering, but the best way to do it is actually as they do. This was our guide who told us what to do. They've got a well there. They fill up their buckets, strange-looking buckets, put them on their shoulders, and they carry a lot of their baskets to market with food on their shoulders like that. Maybe that's a lesson we should learn to stop us having back problems. And he would swing the buckets as he walked to water. But the most fascinating thing that I think that I thought came across was what they were actually growing. It's basically leafy vegetables. And what is another tip that we should, if you're wanting to make money doing this, is we are eating more salads now. Grow leafy vegetables because they're harvested so quickly. They occupy the soil for a shorter time. They mature quicker. You get double the turnover. You get double the money. So among these were a plant called shisho or perilla, which has got quite a bite to its leaves. Amaranth, which we all know. And the middle one, I took a while to find out. And I've discovered it's a Malabar or Ceylon spinach. And those are little white flowers. And it's got a peppery, lemony flavor to the leaves. And you can cook it. And it doesn't, they say, turn slimy like other spinach. Unfortunately, I haven't managed to find seeds of that. Pumpkins, what a brilliant idea. Let your pumpkins grow up onto your pergolas, and they're hanging there. They're not going to get snails eating them. They get a little bit of sun, they get a little bit of shade. And then there were sesame plants growing sesame seed. Arrow armadumbi, or Pelicosia esculenta. That's a picture of them being harvested, being sold in the markets. The fresh fruit and vegetables in the markets was just remarkable. Vietnamese mint. I've got a tip for you there. I kept losing mine. And the same with the blood sorrel. It was just did not do well. The Vietnamese mint I put in a shallow water in my pond. It absolutely took off. It didn't get dry and brown. It was absolutely delicious. And you put that into the rice paper rolls that you make. And it just adds another little taste. And a lot of us use Hertinia as a ground cover. Ooh, that can be eaten too. But my biggest puzzle was this creeping ground cover thing. And that is one of the alien weeds growing in with it. Because I never saw it for sale. I was being told it is morning glory. It's Ipomea aquatica, and you eat it. And then we found at this village them growing it, the top right, and in the market, the bottom. And it's just another one of the spinach plants that you can eat fresh, and it grows very fast and it'll grow in water. And that begs the question, do we make enough of ponds in our gardens? Can we not grow some of our food in the gardens, in ponds? Now we've done a detour to the Czech Republic, to the heart of Prague, to an absolutely extraordinary garden in the grounds of what was once a magnificent private residence, the Wallenstein Palace. And it was built in the 1600s at the behest of Albrecht Wallenstein, the Duke of Mecklenburg, an imperial army general of Ferdinand II, if you're into history, that is. To me, to know it was built in that century and that it is 500 years old is remarkable. But a little South African side thing I found was quite interesting. To build his palace, he had to destroy 25 houses, 7 gardens, a brick kiln, and took over a lot of other plots of land. And sadly, he died very soon after the palace was built. Now, after World War II, it was taken the property of the state government, and it was repurposed into the palace's main building, was repurposed into the Senate of Czechoslovakia. The wall was built using the centerpiece that you use on a roof of the tiles. It's called a dripstone wall, and it's the roof ridge tiles were used as the core for making these stalactites, and it was a lime stucco so it's like a cement they used and dribbled it down. If you look at it from a distance, you can actually imagine human faces, little animals peering out from inside the caves. It is big. I mean, you can see how tall it is. It covers one entire wall. You can see it at the end of the right-hand picture, where there is a statue. This is a formal garden, a little alleyway leading to a formal garden. And that is the formal garden at the top right, with the sala or the pavilion. It's a massive sala or pavilion with lovely statues. I think that's Cupid's in the front one. Very, very good for Valentine's Day, I think. Good choice of picture. And there are magnificent paintings in the building. There also was a lake that was built, and I'm not wanting to rush around remembering names and things. An inventor tried out his steam ship in that to see whether it would work. A little tidbit. And there's a conservatory there as well. That's another close-up of the Sala in this former Baroque garden. So that was an interesting little side step, and in Prague, and it was a lovely city just to walk with beautiful, beautiful trees and parks and flowers, and not what I'd expected at all. Now we are going to Prettiest. I went there when I was 16, and when we were going back to that area, I said I really must go back there. I had such memories of it. So we're flying south into Italy, and it was the first garden of wonder created during the Renaissance. And it's to the northeast of Rome in the garden town of Tivoli. It's a world-renowned water garden and a unique example, one of the first of Italian 16th century gardens, which influenced the development of gardens elsewhere. They were laid out in 1550, for Cardinal Ippolito II d'Este of Ferrara, who, after being named governor of Tivoli in 1550, felt he needed a palace or villa which would represent his new status. So he simply transformed the governor's residence, located on a portion of an old rundown Benedictine monastery. It's set at the top of a slope. It is at the top of your picture. You will see the part of the building, and it's not really a symmetrical garden, but by developing lines of paths, and you've got your longitude and latitude axes, which gives it a better feel. And it's a garden which appeals to all your senses, your touch, your sight, your smell, and your sound, but not just from the water, but from an organ which is powered by water. So I'll sort of walk you down the garden, starting at the loggia, which is right at the top of the longitudinal axis, and we will see what we can find. The important thing to look at is number 17 on the left-hand side, and that is where the water organ is. And that little rose, the roses were just magnificent, beautifully fragrant. So this is looking down from the loggia along the main axis, and if you peered over the edge to the left, you can see how small the people are there. That is one of the first statues and sections we'll look at. Meta and the wolf with Romulus and Remus on the side, and the boat with an obelisk represents the Tiburtina Island in the Tiber River in Rome. And a lot of these statues, very sadly, were actually taken from Hadrian's villa, which is at the bottom of the town. Then it was very interesting to see the Roman ruins, but quite sad. Nearby were statues symbolizing the Anine River, which I'll speak about later, and the Apennine River Mountains. And there were quiet places where you could just get away from the noise and sound and the busyness of water, where urns were very much in sight and making focal points. It just gave a different feel to the garden. You can see how magnificent those trees are, which also helps. We came across this little boy, ran helter-skelter down the stairs and stopped for a sip of water, which I think is probably pretty clean. But I just thought it was really, he obviously knew his way around. And there was another one of the alcoves. If you have a look there, you can see the little pebbles and on the walls, and otherwise they would use the limestone to make a textured look to some of these features. This is the Fountain of the Dragons, and it will have sprays coming from the outside, from the inside, and suddenly from the middle, we timed it and waited for this whoosh to come up. And it's because they flow all the time, virtually, you can see the lovely green patina on some of them. So that's looking at the villa of the fountain. And just note on either side how the stairs curve down. This is your main longitudinal axis. And that's it going whoosh again, with the dragons spitting out water. And there are the staircase. That water was used wherever they could. So it cascades down the balustrade. It goes from step to step on another staircase. At the top, you actually can see the start of the 100 Fountain Avenue, which is there, the Avenue of 100 Fountains. And the water comes in along a canal at the top, and then it spouts out of either as you saw right at the beginning, or a dragon's mouth, and comes out in a fan shape. Now, to get the water into the garden was something else. Let's pause on this lovely picture. It's an amazing example of hydraulic engineering. There's no electricity, there are no pumps. But by using the different levels of the garden, because when you look down, you can see it looks like it's in an amphitheater. Water engineers use gravity to force the water up into 250 odd fountains. And the water interestingly enough, came from the nearby Aniene River, which I mentioned, and it was led there from the river through a 600-meter long underground channel. So this is engineering in the 1500s. Yeah, it mind boggles. There's a line of 100 fountains symbolically linking Tivoli and Rome. It stretches unbroken between the oval fountain that we'll go to next and the Rometta, which is the first one we saw. It features 100 fountains in different shapes, like lilies, eagles, obelisks, and small boats from which the water exits. These are just some of the mosques. A lot of repair work has been done over the years, obviously, because it did fall into a state of disrepair. And the little ferns growing along the walls as well. So this is the fountain, the oval fountain, Del Avato. And it's also got a nymphium there where the little nymphs hide. And you can walk behind the fountain under those archways. On a hot day, it is stunning because you really keep beautifully cool. And we are now looking at the organ, fountain of the organ from the fountain of Neptune. So the fountain of Neptune is hidden under that cascade of water. It's got such a powerful fountain there that you really very seldom see Neptune. But up at the top, if you can see those people standing looking down the rails, immediately behind them, there's a little alcove, and it is in there that the water fountain is. And I think if I read this to you, it will make more sense than trying to explain it. Fountains were constructed between 1566 and 1577. The water creating the music arrived first at the top of the Castellum Aqua. It went through whirlpools, was mixed with air, and then it dropped down a pipe into the Camera Aeolia, or wind chamber, where the air and water were separated. The water turned a wheel, rotating a cylinder, which opened the valves of 22 pipes, so the air could pass through the pipes and make music. In 2003, after a long and delicate restoration, the organ was able to play again. The wind changer and tank for creating whirlpools were retained, and the rest of the mechanism was replaced by new machinery with modern materials. It now has 144 pipes and is controlled by a cylinder operated by the with water, which can play 4 pieces of music. And it's late Renaissance music for a total of 4 minutes. And if you do ever go there, just make sure that you know what time it's going to play, because they don't want to overuse it. So it doesn't play constantly. You've got to work out and make enough time to get there. So this is actually on one of the end of one of the longitudinal axes. And there is the water organ in that little hollow in the middle there between the 2 people. And that's just a close-up of the side, one of the side walls. And that's a view looking down from the where we saw the people at the balustrade, looking down from there between the fountain sprays, down into the countryside. So you can see how high it is. The very interesting statue was the Fountain of Diana of Ephesus, which we saw, and just a close-up of some of the paving and the mosaics that were done. Just a few odd photos of what one could find there. Just lovely wandering in the coolth of the trees, and as you got away from it got more relaxed with trees and flowers and things. We've now taken a short hop to the Dordogne Valley in France, to Vézac, a little town on the river, to the Chateau de Marcousset. I need to check my time. It dates back to the 17th century and was built by Bertrand Marquesac, councillor to Louis XIV. And it's perched above the Dordogne Valley on a little rocky spur, so it's quite sheer cliffs down the side. And the original garden was a formal garden à la France, which was thought to have been laid out by a pupil of André Lenotre of Versailles and Tuileries fame, and it had terraces and alleys and a kitchen garden. Today it's known as the overhanging or the hanging gardens of Marquesac, or the Jardin de Marquesac. It has had various owners over the years, but in 1996 a new owner took over, and Kleber Roussillon, and he's restored the gardens to some of their old character and added some new features. So this is the one picture is made from a slide. Unfortunately, that's why the color is so bad. But the geometric shapes are something a little bit new. And this is the intricacy of the way in which they've curved things, little bobbles on top of hedges, and what look like interweaving patterns. It's a remarkable garden. You might not like topiary gardens, but this was just, it was peaceful. It was relaxing. It was actually really a really interesting garden to visit. And what was nice was you could walk right along the spur of the mountain to a woodland area where there were little borries, stone huts. There was a sea of heads in one area. Another was a lady reclining, bigger than lifestyle lady, reclining, like similar material to this, but they'd used grasses to create her long hair draped down her garden. They also introduced rosemary and Santolina, which is in this picture. And these little sea of heads popping out of the soil sort of gave a little bit of amusement. And it must be wonderful to be there at night when they light it up with candles and lanterns. And there's also a waterfall and beautiful walkway. So it's really a worthwhile garden to go to. Sorry, we will now travel, sorry, my water, further south in France to the Loire Valley. And I thought it a good idea to end with something that was really pretty, something maybe we could copy and repeat ourselves. And these are just some of the hanging baskets we saw. Again, our South African flora comes to the fore, dioecious and plectranthus, which was remarkable seeing it in a pot. And you can tell when it was taken because that was a time when the colourful sweet potato plants were in vogue. Pelargonias were amazing, and it always astounds me how well people grow them over there. And I think their secret is that they probably replant in spring and they fertilize regularly. I'm sure that's part of it. We tend to take them for granted. The artists are getting to work, going to start working on the street art in Cape Town again in 2 weeks' time. So I popped this little one in. It was just a really cute picture we saw in one of the villages. And then the bottom right, you can see I must be dyslexic, I can never remember, was a posy of field flowers that I picked when we stopped our barge once. Little scabious, daisies, little pea-like flowers, and Queen Anne's lace type of flower. It was so pretty. And a very gentle arrangement of flowers if you compare possibly what we have in South Africa. The village we chose to stop at was called the Prettiest village in France. They actually have a competition. Inspiring, beautiful. Après-Mont-sur-Loire, sur Allée in the Loire Valley, I caught sight of these little dolls. They're old dolls, and I think this was a museum in the window at the top left. But the village, what was really interesting about this village was that between the two wars, Eugene Snyder, who's a master of the forges, de Croisseau, who make our pots these days, bought the castle there, and helped by an architect, he renovated the village in order to valorize it. So he removed all the houses that were not in keeping with that time period and replaced them with houses in the regional Middle Age style. Now, obviously, they had all the mod cons inside, which was a positive. And there were some delightful gardens there, and flowers, roses, window boxes. And the walnuts were dropping their nuts, so we managed to collect a few walnuts, something I don't often get to do in South Africa. So these are this village. A window box there with our Streptocarpus saxorum, fuchsias, roses, formal gardens, informal gardens, lots of stonework. And then we went along to the castle and the garden that they've created around there. It's called the Parc Floréal d'Apremont. And the other thing that happened in this village was that they had a quarry, and they used to cut the stones and then transport them by barge on the Loire Valley, the Loire River. And some of these were used to build the cathedral at Orléans. Anyway, when our gentleman bought this castle, he got in a landscaper to come and help, and they drained the quarry, created a river and a waterfall, brought in 650 tons of stone, and used the quarry to create a lake. These are just some pictures that we took. There's a little well on the right-hand side of the right-hand picture. I love the way they labeled their plants. It's the name's there, but it doesn't jump out at you. And that was a verbena, which I cannot read the second part of it. There was an extensive white garden, which was based on Vita Sackville West's white garden. There's another part of it, and these topiary trees, which were immaculate, absolutely stunning. And then a couple of arbors in spring. The wisteria must be magnificent. You could just see the seed pods cascading down, and this was a clematis, an extraordinary color. Another picture of the formal white garden with its pyramids, which add an extra element to the garden. And the color of the houses and their roofs and the stones all gave a lovely muted feel to it. But one of the special things about this garden were its follies. And that was used in the advertising for the talk, in fact. So this was the Russian pavilion right at the top of the hill, which can be seen from miles away. And there are 8 panels around the outside, each of which features the Pulcinelli's puppets traveling around the world. And of course, my eye immediately zoomed on, made me feel quite homesick, the one of Africa. So that was, it's quite, this is quite modern. So it's just a lovely take and something very, very different. Makes you feel quite homesick. Then we have very unusual topiaries in the garden as well. And if you look carefully on the right-hand side of the left-hand picture, you can just see a little batch of red. We'll have a look at that in a moment. They also specialized in getting unusual trees and plants. Some of the viburnums had the most magnificent colored leaves and flowers and different hydrangeas. And then this tree, which I have no idea what it was, and it looks like an albino tree of some sort. But it was a cloudy day that day. I think with the light coming through, it would have given a very different look. And then we get to the Turkish Pavilion, and there seem to be 2 stories about this Turkish Pavilion, which you have to walk across the floating stones. And each of the little doors, the alcoves, there are 4 alcoves, have got a grid over them with a fleur-de-lis in it. But there are mirrors inside. And we were told, probably tongue-in-cheek, that they had mirrors so that you could check that nobody was coming up behind you to give you a surprise. But another version is that it reflects the paintings that are on each of the panels so that you can actually see all the panels and the paintings in one go. I'll leave you to see what you think it is. And finally, we had this earlier on, and we're going to end with their Chinese pavilion. Maybe not in place in a French garden, but who's to say what your tastes are or what you want to do? It's all very personal. And that's a weeping, flowering cherry behind. Oh, to be there at that time of year. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed the talk and maybe inspired to go and visit some of these gardens now that we are freer and people are welcoming us back to their countries. Thank you, John.
Marianne, wow. I think you've just taken us on a trip around the world, and just covering everything. I was looking at I think it's Wallenstein in Prague.
Yes.
That beautiful wall. I'm like, how does nature even do that?
With a bit of help from man.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. We particularly don't have a lot of, in fact, we don't have any questions, but I think it's just all comments, everybody saying, oh, what a lovely talk. Thank you so much. What a lovely array of different gardens, absolutely fabulous from Wendy. We've got, I think it's Banada or Banaba saying, thank you, Marianne. Lovely talk. Thank you very much. We've got Desiree saying, fabulous talk, another bucket list. I think you've created a whole lot of bucket lists for everyone. You see, I wanna give you one, make a little comment here. The challenge with this presentation is that you are making us feel as if we never do anything with our lives. and you're absolutely guilty for making us, feel like that. We've got one fantastic presentation from Nikki saying, so enjoy this presentation. Absolutely lovely. Alistair saying, wonderful variety. And I love the pictures as well. Lately, I've just been appreciating art so much. We have this art exhibition that we run at Kirstenbosch, so at the Richard Crowe Hall. And there's always such beautiful art exhibition going on there as well, So, just the variety of things that you've displayed for us here. Absolutely fantastic. Lynn saying a brilliant array of gardens. Oh, it moved a little bit quickly as I was reading. A brilliant array of gardens. Your knowledge is incredible and well done. Thank you so much. We've got Gloria saying, thank you for an interesting talk and memories of Wallenstein Castle from our trip to Prague.
Oh.
Jill saying thank you. Sherry saying thank you, Marianne. A delightful whirlwind trip, truly inspiring. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is this is just one of those where you're leaving us, having taken us on a journey, just making us feeling like, we can definitely do this. I think all our bucket list has just gone more and more and more. So I'm gonna just pose just two questions towards you, Marianne. Tell us about your next trip, what's coming up. We wanna know, because we've seen the world through your lens now. I think everybody wants to be your friend. What are you planning? And sorry, just before you come in there, do you usually, when you plan your trips, do it by yourself, or is it something that you often maybe just put it out there and say, if there's a group of friends that are interested in joining you, this is what you're thinking?
And normally we plan our trips. Sometimes we go on organized trips, like Vietnam. It was a very foreign place and it was fun being with people from other countries. Otherwise we do it ourselves. We might go to the Netherlands to see our daughter and granddaughters, and they're having their big floral show there, and the name escapes me. It's every 10 years. But I really would love to go to Mozambique. My son works for Peace Parks, and we've been to a park up there called Zanav, which is being rewilded. And it is magnificent. It's on a river. There are areas where you can walk, and with my photography and my love of flowers, The last time we went was in a storm, but the flowers, things we don't get in South Africa, indigenous plants, we could walk and I could photograph them and see what trees were growing there. So mixed feelings. Do we go to Europe or do we go to Mozambique?
Wow,
We'll have
sure.
to see what luck brings.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I wanna challenge everybody that's on the call now, and we literally have 100 folk here on the call. I wanna make this presentation trend because of it's absolutely amazing. We're gonna have this talk on our Facebook page, on the Struik Nature Facebook page. So please go ahead and like that Facebook page. We will share this on the Room to Grow Facebook page as well as the Kirstenbosch National Botanical Facebook page. We're gonna post this video as it is from beginning to end. And what I want us to do, as colleagues on the call, I want us to post your most memorable trip that you've ever taken, post a picture on it. Let's just start getting this movement going. I think we all need to take a little short left. Some of it it doesn't have to be so far as Mozambique. Marianne was just telling me earlier on, and I'd like you to share that story quickly. I think we've got just a few minutes of just that red dunes that you're telling me about, and how far it is, where it is, because I'm absolutely excited. I want to go and do that. So to everybody that's on the call, please go and like our Facebook pages, Struik Nature, Kirstenbosch National Botanical Facebook page, Room to Grow. Check out this whole presentation. Look at that beautiful scenery that Marianne has just shared with us. Leave a little comment. Tell us also what you have experienced that you'd like all of us on the call to check out. Marianne, over to you. Tell us about that little short left that you shared with me earlier.
Terrible road to get there. A place called Witstrand. It's up near Uppington. And it's white sand dunes amongst the red sand dunes. But they're called the Roaring Sands. It is the actual accommodation there is fantastic. You would need a good car, but not necessarily a 4x4. They've got a bird hide that is sunken, so you sit and you're at the same level as the birds. That was another highlight. But it's climbing up the sand dunes, and they roar, and we discovered they roared for us. They don't roar for everybody. I think it was because we chose 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which was very hot, and a very steep slope to go up. And as you stepped and the sand moved, that movement of the grains actually makes a roaring sound. So it was really a worthwhile detour, and it's one that's been on my bucket list for a long time. So it was a mega tick last year.
I have to tell you, Uppington, this is where I'm going. I'm going next. I just need to make sure my shocks in the car are working properly.
Yes.
Sherry, just on the comments on the Q&A, saying I picked up so many practical ideas of my garden. What have you incorporated into your own garden, Marianne? Have you taken some of these trips and incorporated them, all of them, or some of them, into your own personal space back home?
No, actually, my idea of growing vegetables in my pond is something. Well, vata bloemetjies we grow. I think that is one of the ideas that we actually possibly don't make use of that if we have got a pond. And one could even just have for the madumbi, you could just have a barrel of water and grow them in that if you like madumbi. But it's that sort of thing. But I think I don't have a formal garden. One little section that's a formal garden. But I prefer things to be a bit more natural. And I went through a stage of having a white garden, yes. I think we all try that. And then something happens. I've experimented with lots of things. And the other one would be, I think, to try and grow pumpkins up on a pergola. That's and espaliering, that is another too. Espaliering, grow things against the wall in a pattern. Your grenadillas particularly, they're fast, so you get instant results.
Sure, some great ideas there. Some great ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, I want this one to trend, and I think we most definitely can make it trend. Go and like our Facebook page. Marianne, are you on social media?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
I'm waiting for my grandchildren to show me how to do Instagram. They're always too busy to. Now, Facebook, and our garden club actually has a blog and as well. So yes.
Oh, lovely. And what's your Facebook page? What's your
No,
page?
it's just my own.
Oh, and
mine,
what's the name? Is it just Marianne Alexander?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Oh, all right. What we'll do, we'll also copy it and just make sure that we share a link with you and we hashtag you, so that everybody on our Facebook page can also just have a direct link to you, and you're gonna make sure that we get as many friends following you as much as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make this one trend. Please go and like the Facebook page and make sure that you leave a little comment for all of us. And tell us where to go. Marianne has just given us a suggestion to go to Uppington, and has also cautioned us on making sure that we've got a vehicle with good shocks. So from my side, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste too much time, but I want to also direct you to our Kirstenbosch bookshop. Please, if you'd like to get your hands on this copy of Marianne, go to our bookshop at Kirstenbosch and also check it out online on the State Nature website, and you'll be able to get yourself a copy of this amazing book. Beautiful pictures, and yeah, no, we're really excited and we're really proud and privileged to have you on this particular talk. Now, as we wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen, remember this is the month of love. Let's continue sharing the love, and perhaps maybe in some of those comments we can comment where to take our loved ones, just a little short laugh, like Marianne has inspired us. So please make sure that you go and like those Facebook pages. But from my side, I'd like to thank the team that's working behind the scene, making all of this possible, bringing us all together. Belinda and the team back at Struik, Kathy Abbott, we absolutely love you for always finding these amazing speakers, amazing presentations, folk that take us on a journey. From our side also, we look forward to welcoming you guys at Kirstenbosch. Remember that we are running the curated digital exhibition, Seeing the Invisible. Seeing the Invisible, all you have to do is download an app, come out, check out this amazing curated artwork, art pieces spread throughout the garden. The exhibition will be running up until the end of August this year. So we don't have a lot of time, and the weather is so beautiful. So please bring the kids, download the app, and come and check out this digital art. From myself, John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys on the call. And until we meet again in 2 weeks from here, when we welcome another great presentation. From my side, thank you, everybody, and happy Valentine's. Marianne, thank you so much. You must have a great weekend, and we look forward to having you back on this platform. Thank you, everybody. See you guys next time.
Thank you, John. Well done.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody. Happy Valentine's.
Bye.
Cheers.